you may be in that spot where you've overspent, or maybe you've overspent for a while and you've got to get control of this because it's got control of you. And that's a biblical approach. We got to figure out how to manage our money well, because it talks about our attitude and what we're about when it's out of control. Jade, welcome to Focus on the Family.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. Now, you're coming through the fiery furnace of experience, and I love that because you learn so much in that environment. You're not like a professor who never lived it.
That's right. They say the man with an experience is not at the mercy of a man with an opinion.
Right, there you go. So describe that for us, what that looked like. You and your husband, Sam, were you married, or did you carry debt into the marriage, or what was going on?
It was a little bit of both. We both came into the marriage with our fair share of debt, specifically student loans. And then we added to it once we got married, as many couples do. It's like, okay, we're married now. It's time to get the houses and the cars, and, you use credit cards. And so you just look up, and before you know it, you've accumulated a lot of debt. And so the magic starts wearing off. You're into your life. At that point, we were moving from Nashville to South Florida. So you're moving, you're taking inventory, you're deciding, am I going to keep this or are we tossing it? And I just realized, we have a lot of debt and there's not a whole lot of value to show for it.
Let's, so people can go, whoa, give us the number.
$460,000.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big number.
280 was student loans.
That's breathtaking. I mean, okay, so emotionally, you could get there. That's scary. I mean, because you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's probably people listening on YouTube and listening to us on the radio that maybe even past that amount. Who knows? Yeah,
it's terrifying. And I have found that back then, because the year was 2007, we got married in 2007, but 2008 headed into the Great Recession, if you remember.
Yes.
And so everything...
Wow, you were right there at that same time?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
We were trying to sell a townhouse that we had to just try to break even. And there were 26 other townhouses in our neighborhood exactly like it that were for sale. And God really did a miracle, because we said, we know we're supposed to go to South Florida. We're going to go, and God is going to handle this. And an hour into the drive, our realtor said, you have an offer for cash and they want your house and the furniture in it. And we thought, yes, because the furniture was on payments. And so it was great to be able to get that paid for.
Kill two birds with one stone.
Exactly. And so... yeah.
When you're looking at that, how did you plan to dig yourself out of the hole? What's the first thing you and your husband Sam talked about? Honey, we're in trouble.
Well, the truth is both of us realized that we didn't have a very firm foundation in how to handle money. You kind of pick up things from your family as you go. And I remembered my dad saying, you don't want to go into debt and, you need to budget. And I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I haven't really done either of those things well. And I didn't know the next step in order to do them well. And I remembered hearing Dave Ramsey on the radio years back. And it's he's got that boisterous personality. And I told my husband, I think there's this guy, Dave, and I think he can help us.
Yeah, right.
And so I looked up the book, The Total Money Makeover, and we went to Barnes & Noble and picked it up. And after that, it was the rest was history. We decided that we would listen to the radio show as often as possible. And then it became a podcast, so you could download it and listen to it whenever you wanted. And so we were addicted to that show because there was so much hope for us there.
Yeah. But in that context, the difficulty is, I guess the steps would be A, awareness.
Yes.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
B, how are we going to get out of this? And C, applying the principles, which that's what makes Dave so effective, because it's not rocket science.
Right.
It's very predictable. If you do these things,
yes,
you will get out of debt. But you've got to do them, and discipline is not a human trait we enjoy.
That's right. It's very easy to understand, not easy to do. You go, oh, okay, yes, I need $1,000 saved. That's easy to understand. But then for most Americans, they've never had $1,000 cash. And so they go, oh, wait a second, what do I need to do to actually get that? And that's where kind of the rubber meets the road, and you realize this is not just something that I'm going to be able to think myself into. I have to take actions, and I'm going to have to change my behavior.
Yeah.
And so for Sam and I, that was really the first thing, is when we said, okay, we've got this problem. We can look at the numbers. We can see the math is not working. But then it was, okay, it's a behavior change. We can't continue life as we've known it. We've got to make complete 180 changes in how we spend, how we talk about money, and really how we think about money.
When you're looking at that mound of debt, though, $460,000 in your case, and you're going, okay, here's our income. We can set aside X a month. And I do want you to fill in these blanks for us because it's very practical. But it's got to seem like it will take us our entire lifetime to get there.
It did. In the very beginning, when we started looking at it, and I don't know if God just was like, I'm going to shield you from this, but we never calculated the entire amount. It was kind of like we saw what it was and we said, okay, we're going to focus on the smallest first. And we're going to be laser focused there and just look at that one.
Just get it done.
Just get it
out of the
done.
way.
And there is a piece of this. I mean, I have to say it, and especially on this show, I have to say it. There is a piece of this where you look at the plan, you go, here's what the plan tells me I have to do. Then if you're not asking, God, I need you to help me. Like, I need help with this because if I just follow the math on this, it's going to take my whole life. I need ways to get my income up. I need opportunity to knock. And if you bring the opportunity, I promise I will work to get it, to do it.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part for Sam and I, because when we started, our income was quite low. And so we needed to adjust that in order to kind of make those ratios line up.
Yeah. I mean, you're married a year.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us, our income is quite low at that point.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Gene and I didn't have furniture.
That's right.
I can remember we lived in an apartment and I had just gotten back from Japan and I thought, we could throw some blankets down. It's called a futon.
That's right.
and that was our bed for like the first year in our 1-bedroom apartment. But that's early marriage, right?
I mean, we went the opposite direction. When I met Sam, he had a little townhouse that he'd bought with his mom, and we immediately moved in there, and there was furniture, and it's like the rooms to go,
oh, I like that.
300 years, no payments, no payments till the year 3030, And so we were in there, and when we moved, we were like, okay, we're going all in on this. So we sold all of our furniture, and we moved into a small apartment, and then we moved from that apartment into another place where we had roommates, right? We were doing everything we could to lower our expenses. And I remember when we finally got rid of the roommates, because let's be honest, 2 married people living with other married people is wild.
There's got to be another way.
There's got to be another way. And so that didn't last long. But I remember we had friends come to the house. And the initial plan was, let's go to their house and eat dinner. And they said, well, we've never been to your house. Why don't we come over with you and Sam? And I'm like, well, we don't have any furniture. And I guess they thought that we were exaggerating until they showed up at the door and they go, oh, you really don't have furniture. They said, well, where do you eat? I said, we just sit on the steps. We just sit on the steps with the plate on our lap. And they go, okay, let's go to our house. So we went over to their house.
We're not going to do that. That's so funny. Let's get some practical insight about how you climbed out of debt.
Yeah.
I mean, we're nibbling at the edges here,
Sure.
but lay down for people that might be in a similar spot. What are you going to do? A, B, C, D, etc.
Yeah. So with the Ramsey plan, there's 7 baby steps is what we talk about. But the truth of that is there's really 2 baby steps that come before the 7. The first baby step is invisible. I call it the invisible baby step because it's the idea that I'm just going to decide to stop borrowing money. It happens up here first. Because for a lot of us, borrowing money is the problem. We overborrow, we over leverage, and next thing we know, we can't pay our bills.
And that includes credit cards. That's a form of borrowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Credit cards are one of the most difficult ones that people deal with because they get this dependency on it. And so the first thought is like, okay, I'm going to stop the bleeding and I'm not going to borrow money anymore. Happens upstairs. It's invisible. Then the next one is really like I'd call a baby step 0 where you say, now I need a plan. I need a foundation, and that's the budget. And if you're not doing a budget, it's what everything is built on. So a lot of people go, oh, I'll follow the 7 baby steps, but they never really get on a budget. And I'm like, this is why it's not working for you. So you've got to have that budget. We suggest a 0-based budget, which is basically saying, here's my income, and I'm going to plan for every single dollar until it's 0. And just to clarify for anybody, 0-based budgeting doesn't mean that you have $0 in your checking account, right? It just means that I've said, in the last $200 is just as a cushion, right? So there's still money there, but you've planned this is how it's going to be allotted.
It's got a purpose.
Yeah. And that way, when you do that, you feel in control and you don't feel the guilt that some people feel around their spending, especially this time of year. It's like, oh my gosh, I just went to, is it Briargate that I saw over there? I just went to Briargate.
Yeah, the Briargate Mall.
Yeah, and I spent, $200. And there's like the little bit of guilt, like, should I have done that? Was that okay? But when it's on your budget, and it's planned for, you get to do that and feel joy and feel all of the good things that you should feel with your money, not
You
guilt.
don't feel guilty.
That's right. And so those are the first kind of foundational steps. And then you do get into the baby steps where you go, okay, I need $1,000. I need just a quick cushion to keep myself between me and what could happen in life.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might think, well, is that really enough? And the truth is it is. Most Americans could not cover $1,000 emergency without their credit card, right? And so we find that when people get that, the peace that they feel is just overwhelming. And then, of course, baby step 2, you're paying off all of the debt. And that's kind of where people are like, oh, my goodness, what does that look like? That feels overwhelming. And so baby step 2, you go through there, and then on down until finally baby step 7, you're building wealth, you're giving. And the whole purpose of this is so that you can live and give like no one else.
Live and give. I like that. Jade, you described lies in here, and I loved it because one of them, I think I'm a big believer in this one, which is budgets are a form of punishment that restrict you from spending. That feels really right.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that way. It's kind of...
I hate budgets.
Yeah, I hate budgets. And you kind of think of them as, they're for people who have somehow made mistakes with money, or it's kind of like that finger shaking at you, like you've been bad with your money, and so you have to be on a budget, right? And the truth is, I do think that in the wrong context, a budget can feel like that. That's the truth. Like it can kind of be this voice telling you all the things you've done wrong with your money, right? Or you can shift the context and say, well, truly it's something I'm in control of, and truly it's something that I get to decide, and I get to look at it and say, okay, of course, being a responsible adult, I've got to pay the bills and I've got to do these things that, make me a financially responsible adult. But what do I do with the extra? That's up to me. And if I decide it's important for me to, I don't know, get my nails done, I get to decide that. And if I get to decide during a season that it's important to sacrifice one area for another, I get to choose that. And so really reframing the mind to say, this is something that I get to have control of and that I get to choose. And there will be different times in my life where I get to make trade-offs and say, well, I'd rather trade, I don't know, a certain amount of entertainment spending for a certain amount of credit card reduction spending, right? So we get to have control of that. It's not a force above us saying, you've been bad and here's what you get. It's us going, you know what? I want to have control of this. I'm a steward of this money, and it's something that I want to control in a way that's going to be best pointed to our values and what we want to do as a family.
One of the things you mentioned in the book is the way you talk about money, that you need to be thinking about that, because that, what the word says, the power of our tongue, right? That words are powerful. So in that context, how do you have to change the way you talk about money?
Yeah, I talk about it as a vocab rehab. And
vocab rehab.
Vocab rehab.
I like this. This is great. I love it.
Well, initially I thought about it in the terms of husbands and wives because, especially going into a relationship early on, it's kind of like, this is my money and that's his money, and this is my debt and that's his income. And it's very separate, right? But we're supposed to be one. And so if you can change just the simplest terms of saying, how are we going to spend our money? And did we get paid this weekend? And, have we paid our bills yet? Just the we, the our, the us, it really creates unity between the two.
Let me ask you, though, some couples struggle with this. And what I have observed is the wife can be the one that struggles. And that may not be true, but I'm just saying my experience, where she feels proud that she's also earning some income or something like that. It's kind of expected that the husband will be that, in Christian circles particularly, the provider kind of attitude. But I do find there's something deep with some people about the mine, yours concept that is hard spiritually to overcome. Why don't we consider this ours? We're one flesh, we're one spirit. Why wouldn't it? What creates that conflict?
I think it can come from a lot of different areas. Number one, if you're coming from a background where there is maybe a little bit more of a traumatic experience, and you say, oh, well, I came from a household where one spouse kind of lorded over the money, or I came from a household where there was a lot of control when it comes to money. Then you go into your relationship and say, I don't want to do that. I'm going to just,
I want to be the one in control.
I want to be the one in control. So there can be that. And then, to your point, sometimes gender roles do fall into an unhealthy role where it's like, well, this guy's the provider, he's the moneymaker. I guess he has control over the money. And since I'm, maybe at home with the kids, or I'm not bringing in as much income, maybe my say doesn't matter much. And so we fall into those unhealthy roles.
How do you assess that in terms of skill? I mean, in other words, one person typically will be more skillful than the other at budgeting.
Yes.
And kind of controlling the outflow. And do you come together and recognize that skill first and determine, okay, you're better at this than I am?
Absolutely.
Paying the bills, managing the bills, understanding where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. We call that, there's just kind of different personality traits, really.
Yeah.
You have the nerd who's like, I've got the spreadsheet and I
person.
love the numbers, and they love to dig in. And then you have more of the free spirit who goes, you just tell me what it is and I'll do my best to stick with it.
I'll pick it out.
And I probably won't stick with it because I'm a free spirit, right?
Right. I'll pick the car out.
Yeah.
I'll pick out the fridge.
Yeah. And the free spirit tends to be, not always, but the free spirit tends to be the spender. And the nerd tends to be the person who's like, I save, I like to put away for a rainy day. And those two people get married. And then it's like everything's breaking loose.
And the Lord chuckles.
That's
at that.
right. I'm sure he does. But the truth is, I think if you can lean into that and go, okay, I know who I am, I know who you are. But it's not an excuse to tune out. Just because the free spirit is not really a numbers person, you don't tune out. You still come together at the table. And the numbers person says, hey, I started filling in some of these numbers. How do you feel about it?
Oh,
and
good.
then the free spirit gets to go, oh, that's all I get for groceries? Like, I need a little bit more, right? And so you're still having this open dialogue. Both spouses are able to really say, well, this is what I need. And here's where I need to be reflected in the budget is basically what I'm getting to. And as long as both spouses are being reflected in the budget, they're both having an open dialogue, then they are doing it together, even if one person tends to take the lead on the mathematical part.
Yeah. We're believers, right? We come together. Wouldn't it be nice if churches, you had mentoring couples on the two big issues, finances and intimacy? I mean, those are the two big issues.
Yes.
Why not have mentoring couples in the church saying, let us help you with that. We know how to do these things.
Yeah.
It'd be so helpful to the body of Christ.
It would, because I find that those are the topics that you stay quiet on, and even Sam and I look back and I go, wow, we were really we held our cards very close to our chest on this. And it's that shame that you feel.
Yeah.
You just kind of assume that everybody else has got it together. No one else is struggling like this. I've made these mistakes. And as a result, you tend to keep it quiet. And yeah, I think that if I could give one message to people listening is probably the person next to you wishes they could kind of elbow you and go, oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Are you feeling the
Right.
strain? Oh, me too, And so just normalizing saying, oh, I can't afford that. My budget is tight right now would give a lot of people the room to go, oh, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah.
You encourage couples to check in every day on their finances. When I first read that, I went, really? I think Jean and I probably check in 2 to 3 times a week, and that we're pretty comfortable with that. But discuss why it's important to do that every day, maybe until you're in a rhythm.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of us, this is new territory. And we talked earlier about you're changing your behaviors. And so it's kind of, if you're exercising for the first time, if you don't really go all in mentally and say, okay, my goal is to be in shape. For me to start creating that habit, I need to be pretty consistent about it. And then once it becomes a consistent thing, if I miss a day or two, it doesn't mean that I've fallen off the wagon.
Now, a check-in isn't like, oh my gosh, how much money did you spend?
No.
That's not a check-in. That's a accusation.
No. And really, I like the check-in as I'm telling you what I did. I'm not asking you what you did.
Yeah.
And so the idea is if I tell you what I did, then I'm opening up the communications and now you can tell me what you did. So if I say, oh, Sam, I filled up the car today. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. And I ran to Publix. You'll see that charge come through. Great. Done.
Yeah.
Done.
We
that
actually
easy.
evolved into a cash limit. If we're going to spend more than $100,
Yeah.
we had to check with each other,
Yeah.
which I thought was good. That was in place for a long time.
I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, some couples will say $300, some couples will say $500, but I do think that it's not even a thing so much of, may I have permission to spend this on the check-in? It's just, hey, I'm letting you know what's going on so that you know. And there's transparency. There's no way to hide because we've seen that there's a lot going on with financial infidelity and this kind of stealthy spending. I have my own savings over here that my spouse doesn't know about. I have a credit card over here that my spouse doesn't know about. And
That's
so
not good.
that's terrible.
Yeah. That's not healthy.
Let's address that just a little bit more, Jade, because I do know couples that have his and her accounts, and I get at some level, but it feels like you shouldn't have everything separate.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're saying.
Well, at the end of the day, I think you have to ask yourself the question, am I intentionally trying to hide something? And that's the question, because obviously, if you go to Target, you return something and they give you $50, you put it in your wallet, you think nothing of it,
Free
right?
money.
It's free money. But if you're thinking to yourself, I want to keep this for me because if he sees it or if she sees it, then they're not going to let me do my thing. So I'm going to keep, So there's that idea of, are you trying to hide it? Because if you are, this is something we need to explore and look deeper on and go, well, why? Why is that?
And I think it's important to point out, again, this is temperament stuff too. For the saver, for the nerd saver, as you call that person, which, they can exhibit that tendency when there's excess resource there. Okay, we need to set this over here. How would you coach a couple where you have those two temperament types, the spender and the saver? How can the saver do a better job of gently talking about that bit of excess and what could be done with it, rather than being the ogre,
right?
And saying, okay, that's going in here to pay down old debt. You need to have some fun.
You do. And I think that it goes back into, and I probably need to write something on this, but there's love languages and how people spend.
Oh, that's good.
You know? And so the person who, like my husband, he's a gifts person and I'm a grocery person. Like you can cut every other area, but please don't cut my grocery budget. Like I need that.
Like
it's how I show love.
Yeah.
It's through cooking. So you have to get to know your spouse and go, what's that one thing that is very important to them? And if I can meet them there, then they should be able to meet me in the things that are going to cause us to be in a good financial position, because there is a part of this where you say, well, we do have to invest for the future and we do have to save and we should pay down our debt. And those things are more important than, I don't know, buying new shoes or, buy golf equipment, right? And so there's a part of it.
Wait a minute. No, I'm
kidding.
I'm kidding.
This show is for you, Jim.
I just bought a golf club. That's so funny you should say that.
But I mean, if you align and say, okay, our number one goal is to pay down the credit card debt, right? This is our number one goal. In the midst of that, what are we willing to sacrifice and to what extent?
A good place to end the discussion. And again, this is a great book. Money's Not a Math Problem. Unity is kind of the goal. When you look at it, that to be unified on the goal of getting out of debt and becoming a giver, which is great. How can couples get a hold of that vision that you have?
I think it starts with creating a vision for the future, right? There's got to be a so that, right? We're doing this so that. And so having that why there, and it can't be small and it can't just be about you, because if it is small and if it's just about you, then it's easy to say, well, this doesn't matter very much, right? And so if you're looking and you're saying, if we make this change, how does it affect our family tree? If we make this change, how are we able to become generous people that really can affect our community or affect our church or, so on and so forth. And so taking the time and kind of getting out of yourself a little bit and looking around and going, okay, if we do this, what next?
Yeah, that is so good. This has been great. Man, it flew by. I love your energy, and sorry about the $460,000 in debt, but man,
It's okay.
Praise God, you're out of that.
Yes.
Right? You and
Yes,
Sam are
free.
doing well now and raising those precious kiddos.
Yeah.
So this is what it's about. And Jade's done a wonderful job. Money's not a math problem. The real reason you're broke and what to do about it. I mean, everybody struggles with this. So I'm telling you, even people that have a lot of money still struggle with budgets, and you tend to overspend. So get in touch with us. This is probably that perfect time when we say, if you can make a gift of any amount, we'll send you the book as our way of saying thank you. If you can't afford it because you're in so much debt, we're going to trust others who have become givers will cover the cost of that, and we'll send this to you. Just get in touch with us and say, I desperately need that, and we'll do that for you.
Yeah, be generous as you can when you call 800, the letter A and the word family, or you can donate online and request this book, Money's Not a Math Problem. At our website, we've got the link in the program description.
Jay, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
And thank you for joining us today for Focus on the Family with Jim Bailey. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.